So the next one, Sutra 43, is tapasya. Tapasya means, I'll read the sutra and then I will talk to you through the different levels of meaning. By austerity, impurities of the body and senses are destroyed and occult powers gained. Okay, whew, a lot of big words. We'll go step by step. When I took you through the yamas and the niyamas earlier on, tapasya was defined as accepting pain and not causing pain in return. Accepting pain as a means for personal growth. That's what it means in a nutshell. Most of the time when painful experiences happen to us, we go into an automatic reactive mode. And we blame, or we attack, or we hurt others. We say something mean back if somebody says something mean to us. And so what this Yoga Sutra is trying to teach us to do is not to be so reactive. Don't be so reactive and respond instead with conscious awareness. So the word tapas, it's not a Spanish dish. In Sanskrit, the word tapas actually means to burn. And so when you look at what is burning you, right? If you look at gold, you have to burn the gold, and the higher the temperature and more that gold is burnt, the purer it gets. The carats are much higher. It's more pure in gold because the impurities get burnt out. That's what it means to burn. So when you are living your life and you are having friction with certain people, friction causes heat. Too much friction causes you to burn. But what does that friction do? It burns out the impurities. Having friction with someone allows you to be aware of your capabilities and your capacity. It allows you to look very hard at your shortcomings and look very closely at your imperfections. If you look at pebbles on a beach, they're beautiful and smooth and round, but they didn't start out that way. They started out as jagged rocks. Only by rubbing and scrubbing against each other were they able to take off all those hard edges to become smooth and round. That is the same for us. Our spiritual muscles need to be strengthened. If somebody insults you and you lose all sense of peace and you cry and you can't handle it and it affects you for days and days and days, to me, overly sensitive, big ego. That's what Nalini said to me. Nalini Chellaram, my teacher. If you're overly sensitive to other people's words, you have a big ego. Ouch, harsh, oof. But take it and understand it and learn from it. And you can accept the insult or you don't have to. Master Shivananda, so Swami Satchidananda's guru, he has a teaching that says, bear insult, bear injury. That is the highest sadhana. The word sadhana means spiritual practice. Bearing insult and bearing injury. I mean, that's very similar to the teachings in the Bible, where if somebody strikes you, turn the other cheek. Bear insult, bear injury. Now, this doesn't mean let somebody abuse you and take you for granted. It doesn't mean that at all. In yoga, we're not meant to be doormats. In the name of peace, we're not meant to be weak with that peace. We're meant to be courageous and strong. So how do we balance the two? If somebody insults you, well, Sri Gurudev puts it this way. If you're walking down the street and you walk past somebody's home and there's a dog behind the fence and the dog comes barking at you, rah, 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 what are you going to do? Freak out? Bark at the dog right back? No. The dog is barking. You can accept that the dog is barking at you, but you don't have to accept it. You just walk on. Same thing with an insult and an injury. But how many times do we take criticism and we stew over it? If you've ever had a work evaluation form and you get excellent, 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 you need to work on this, satisfactory. Oh my goodness, we're going to mull over and over and over and over and over again the one thing we did wrong. We get so offended by that negativity. You might have 10 positive things, one negative thing, but we only stew over the negative. So accepting pain as help for personal growth, take it, accept it, look at it, observe. What are my shortcomings? What is my capacity? Now, it doesn't mean be excellent at everything, but focus on those strengths and cultivate those strengths. And then if you have those weaknesses and somebody points out those weaknesses, accept it. If you want to be stronger in that, go do something about it. Definitely go do something about it. But if you can accept that you're not good at this, then find somebody else who is and put them on your team. It's as simple as that. Right? You don't need to be all things to all people. The only person you need to be is authentically you. There's hundreds of copies of other people, but there's only one of you. Find it and be authentically you. So coming back to this sutra, by austerity. So now Sri Patanjali is referring to the word tapasya as austerity. And here we mean the pain and the burning and the friction that comes along with disciplined practice. When you have a disciplined practice, the impurities of your body and your senses are destroyed. And so here we specifically mean your yoga sadhana. If you do your hatha yoga diligently, if you practice meditation diligently, if you follow the 8-limbed path diligently, your body will stay healthy and clean. Your senses are purified. You're not running around just looking for sensory comforts. And occult powers gained. What is occult powers gained? Well, it means that your awareness is enhanced to the point where it may seem that you have some sort of supernatural power. It may seem that you are highly intuitive, but really it is because you are so present and so aware. And these occult powers are called siddhis. And book 3 in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali explore all these siddhis. And they're magical. You could get the opportunity to read somebody's mind, but it's not like that in some sort of a supernatural. You're so aware, you're so good at deep listening. It's actually not hard to actually read somebody's mind. When you are that aware and you're reading somebody's body language, nonverbal communication, facial expressions, sentiment, and words, and meanings behind the words, you kind of get it. But we never really truly listen with that awareness. But you talk about all these occult powers. Now, a lot of people go straight to book 3 and read about all these occult powers and they get so excited about it. In a way that modern yoga, people are all wrapped up in the contortionist, acrobatic side of yoga. The last time we had the Asia Yoga Conference, they had the Hong Kong circus troupe come to perform at the yoga conference. And then I said, okay, this is no longer a yoga conference. This is a circus. What happened to the yoga? What happened? And I'm not saying it's bad to contort your body. You need body and mind control, but you also need a certain type of genetics to be able to contort your body in yoga poses. 1 in 4 people have those genetics. I certainly don't. I am not going to waste my time or the real estate in my mind telling me that I'm not a good enough yogi because I can't do that. I simply don't have the genetics. And that's okay. That's okay. Because not everybody wants yoga for that purpose. But for the people that do want yoga for that purpose, thank goodness we have yoga teachers out there that can do that. Because again, when you are totally focused on nailing a super advanced yoga pose, you're not getting in trouble anywhere else. So again, it's not a bad thing. Nothing is good or bad. It's just what brings you peace, what doesn't bring you peace. And then what happens when you leave the mat and go out into the world. And then what happens when it's time for you to drop your physical body? Then what? So by the practice of austerity, these occult powers are gained. But these occult powers can be very distracting. It's like you're on the road. It's like let's say you're on a pilgrimage and you're on the road to Mecca. And then you see this beautiful, gorgeous mini temple oasis. And it is absolutely stunning. And there's a little pond and some trees. And it's just gorgeous. And you're like, oh, I have arrived at an oasis. And there's a sign that says, Mecca is only 20 days away. You're not going to stay in the oasis and jump about being like, I'm in the oasis. I'm at the sign that says Mecca is only 20 days away. No. You still have to carry on the path. Your goal is Mecca, not the oasis. And that's what the siddhis are. They are signposts along the way that you have achieved certain progress in your meditation practice, that you have achieved certain progress in your spiritual practice, but you're not yet there. Okay? So austerity. Now, austerity doesn't mean discipline your body to the point where it wastes away as well. And you see this in modern yoga practices, but you also see this in India back in the day where you have these yogis that are so austere and they're in their loincloths and they don't eat and they just so extreme. But when it is so extreme to the point where you are not feeling in equilibrium, it is dangerous for your body and your mind. You also develop a neurosis behind it. How many people have what is called orthorexia? It's a disorder with healthy living. It's good to be disciplined in your practice. It's good to detox. It's fine. It's wonderful because it's necessary. Actually, all cultures around the world have some sort of period or festival where people are fasting. Lent, Ramadan, Rosh Hashanah, Navaratri, you name it. People are fasting in the names of their religions. It comes part and parcel of cleaning out your body so you can clean out your mind. All religions and cultures have something like that. But what happens when you take it too far? What happens when you take it too far? Now, according to yoga teachings, the most you're allowed to fast is about 50 days. And you can do it extreme in one go, which is, again, over the top austere, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. Or you can do it once a week, which is what the yoga teachings say. Fast once a week, and then during the equinox, you do your kriyas, your shat kriyas, twice a year. And you don't overburden your digestive system. You're following the sattvic diet. The sattvic diet is a vegetarian diet. It's not necessarily a vegan diet. But the idea of the sattvic diet is you're consuming things that require the least amount of prana to digest, but gives you the maximum pranic surplus for you to meditate and achieve self-realization. So you got to find that balance. Tapasya means discipline, not rigidity, and definitely not neurosis. A lot of the gurus used to take their monks that were so rigid and force them to eat sweets or force them to eat chilies. Why? Because they would laugh and say, ha ha ha, what of your peace of mind then? Right? So consider very carefully, how austere do you want to be in your life? Yes, you need discipline. Without discipline, there is no freedom. A lot of people look at discipline like it's a trap, like there's no freedom to be disciplined. But actually, if you are disciplined, you are the most free human being there is, because you know your body. And if you go out of your rhythm and you go out of your routine, what then of your peace? You have to establish a new norm. But if you're aware that everything is changing, it's easier to adapt. I mean, look at all of us. We got thrown off our socks with COVID, but we're still here. We're adapting, some of us better than others, but you make do. People took their commute time and started exercising. I couldn't run. I always run here and there with lots of equipment and things, back and forth to class. I didn't have that anymore. So I started running and started doing aerobics on YouTube, because it was that one way that I could get my body moving. You adapt it. You keep the discipline of your practice, but you're not overly rigid with it. And then you gain these occult powers. The power to control your physical body, the power to control your senses. You become a very powerful human being when you have that discipline. So it brings us to the last two. By the study of spiritual books comes communion with one's chosen deity. This is svadhyaya. Svadhyaya means study of spiritual books or study of the self. What we are doing today over this week is svadhyaya. We are learning about ourselves, our minds, our spirituality. But if you follow a religion and you really read one of your religious texts, it is also svadhyaya. If you engage in the act of self-inquiry and self-analysis, you are also doing svadhyaya. And what happens as a result of studying your spiritual self comes communion with your chosen deity. By communion, it means connection, some sort of union with the teachings that you are learning about. When you study yourself, you become connected to yourself in a totally different way. When you study the Bible, you become connected to Lord Jesus with your heart and with your mind and through the teachings. When you study the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, you become so connected to the teachings. When you study with a guru or a teacher, you become so connected to your guru and the teacher. But remember, if what you are studying comes from a person, remember that humans are still humans, and they are just a vehicle passing through a message. So while it is so important to honor and respect the teachers that have given you this message, you don't worship them blindly. You follow the teachings with faith. But you also have to hold your teachers accountable for their actions. And your teachers need to be able to practice what they are teaching. And if they claim to be perfect, be careful. Be very careful. Because this is where we have heard so many stories about abuse in our yoga industry. of gurus taking advantage of their students, of yoga teachers taking advantage of their students. Why? Because as students, we put our teachers up on pedestals, especially when they're imparting knowledge that is so profound and so beautiful. So many times after a talk from Swami Satchidananda, I just wanted to touch his feet and say thank you. And I did, and I have. And if he were standing in front of me today, I would still. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I know that he is a human being. And every human being has their set of flaws. Nobody is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. So remember that when you are studying spirituality. Honor and respect your teachers. Hold them accountable for what they're teaching, and know yourself. And this brings us to the last of the Niyamas. By total surrender to God, Samadhi is attained. Wow, just the one thing. Just the one thing. Surrender to God and you'll be enlightened. That's it. Done. Don't have to do any of these complicated things. Just surrender. But how hard is it to let go? It's so hard to let go. It's really, really hard to let go. There's a saying, let go and let God. Okay, beautiful notion, but what if you don't believe in God? Oh, do you believe that our universe has a fundamental insight intelligence? Yes. There is an intelligence that keeps things in order. How do you know? How does the sun know to rise every morning and set every evening? How do our hearts know to pump without us consciously pumping it? How do we know? This is governed by intelligence. How does a baby know to have milk from a mother's breast? The baby just knows. This is some fundamental insight intelligence that exists everywhere. Trust that intelligence. Trust that intelligence, because whether you call it God or consciousness or intelligence or even love or peace, surrender to that. Swami Satchidananda used to say, make peace your God. Hold peace so close to your heart that peace becomes the biggest, most important thing in your life. And he also said, if God were to appear as a person in front of me and say, follow him, I would still choose my own peace first. Because that comes before any God. So make peace your God and surrender fully to this. Swami Satchidananda says, how can you lead a life of total surrender? By dedicating your life to humanity. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that says, Tyagat Shantir Anantaram. The dedicated ever enjoy supreme peace. So by living a selfless life that is dedicated for the well-being of others and letting go of all selfish motives, you will know supreme peace. Surrender, let go, and embrace that. Melt into that, and you will have samadhi. So this concludes our study today of the yamas and the niyamas. And they're just the first two limbs of the eight-limbed path of yoga. So if you have yamas and niyamas, and now most of you are familiar with asana and pranayama, That is half of the total practice of yoga. Half. And it's already quite a lot. There's already so much you can do off the mat, so much you can do on the mat. Lots to mull over and think over.